starting.
Ready? It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And the first item will be roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Fritz?
Present.
Mr. Gerke?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Meehan?
Here.
And myself, Chief Dirk. We have Jamie Lubery and Dr. David Gustafson, as well as Roy Benton, the assistant chief.
Take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Has everyone read the previous meeting's minutes? Are there any corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. Since we have no public comment submitted, we'll move on to the report of the officers and CFO report.
Okay, I sent an email yesterday to let you guys know the status of the stimulus payments. We got the first round. The second round, we have to actually file for. And there's some validation that has to take place there, and they are trying to validate that based on tax returns. Since we don't file a tax return, I am waiting to get a little bit more guidance on what we need to do there. So as I said in that email, we have to accept the terms and conditions of the first round of payments and then apply for the second round. And those payments go out every Friday after the information is validated. Any questions on that? All right, if not, my report starts on page 3. This is the financial statements for the first quarter. Page 3 is the budget performance summary. Revenue is a little bit over budget, about 2% over budget so far for the year. And then expenses are just about right on budget, 25.85%. Any questions?
I just want to point out in dollar amount, it's in the lower left-hand corner, what that means to us in a positive manner. So that's $123,000 approximately on the good side for the first 3 months. Good budgeting. Good budgeting.
Pages 4 starts the detail of the budget performance. And again, you'll see the same in budget. Any questions on any of that detail?
If I could add on page 3, Mrs. Wolverine, toward the bottom, gain and loss on asset disposition, we got $18,000 in the budget. That's the piece that we were waiting to sell. A vehicle we were going to sell, right?
Yes, yes.
And that has not been sold yet, Chief? No, that's been
It was. Yeah, it was. We received the money in April.
Hey, okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jamie, to accept the terms of that first payment, does the board need any action or?
That's up to them. I mean, I can go accept the terms. Basically, the terms are we're going to use the money for reduced revenue and taking care of possible or positive COVID patients. And we can't balance bill any probable or positive COVID patients. Those are the biggest things. There's a lot of terms in there. There's all kinds of stuff thrown in there, but those are the big things. And I emailed those terms and conditions if you guys have any questions on that. We have until May 10th to accept that.
Is that one that has to be repaid or forgiven, or what is that?
It's a grant. There's no repayment. Now, if they calculated something wrong, we might have to pay something back if they calculated something wrong, because they based
that
it
was
off of,
What was the dollar amount?
the payment. It was 82,447, and we got that in April too. And that was based off of a 2018 Medicare, what we received in 2018. Any other questions on that?
And we're going to be eligible for the second one?
Correct. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mike.
I said, I don't understand all these stimulus things. That's the reason I'm asking.
Yes, there's a lot of them. And then
I want to applaud Jamie for the fact that Jamie stayed ahead of the curve on this, and she has been continually online with some of those folks that we pay good money with, like Missouri Ambulance Association and National Ambulance Association. They guided them to what to do with regard to the application for this money. And the second one, I guess, Jamie, is my understanding is it's going to be figured on now what we've done this year with regard to Medicare and Medicaid, or is it?
I actually just got an email a few minutes ago, and they're still saying it's based on 2018 net patient revenue. I haven't went through the tool to see what we have to report, but based on the webinars I've done with American Ambulance Association, it's going to be based on our reduced income and increased costs. So, and then we also have applied to be a provider for uninsured patients. If we transport anybody that is not insured, that is a possible or a positive COVID patient, there will be payment for that at Medicare rates as well. And that one is a first come, first serve. I've applied to be a provider, and then we can start filing claims May 6th. Any other questions on the stimulus? All right. Back to the report. Page 8 is the balance sheet this year versus last year. And you'll notice there our cash is up about 694,000, which we don't know how much of that we're going to need this year with the economy the way it is, but that's a good thing that we have that available to us this year. Any questions on the balance sheet?
On page 8, Windsor base, 315,000. Be on our balance sheet since we don't own that building.
That's not the building. That is the equipment that we own and the ambulances that are housed in Windsor.
So the main building.
That is the main building. Yeah, that is the main building, the headquarters building.
Okay, that includes the other 10 ambulances then?
Nope, that's just the building.
So now I'm confused. We'll put the on the Windsor side, but not on the Sedalia side.
All the rest of the vehicles are under vehicle. So that Windsor is just the equipment that's located at Windsor.
We're listing rolling stock as a fixed asset.
Correct. Yes, that's the way all assets are handled. Anything over $1,000 is listed as an asset. I'm sorry.
That's a PA.
Oh, okay, sorry. Any other questions on the balance sheet? Page 9 starts the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for this year versus last year. Again, you can see the income's up over last year, about 30,000. Any questions on any of that? It's basically all the same information that was on the budget. Okay. Page 10 starts the bank balances. Thursday versus last year, or I mean, not last year, I'm sorry, last meeting, down about 200,000. And then the cash reserve chart, you can see that increase over last year at this time as well. Page, oh, does somebody have a question? Okay. Page 11 is the cash reserve analysis. I looked back at last year at this time, and we've increased that about a little over a month of cash reserves on hand. Pages 12 and 13 is the check register. Any questions on that? Page 14 is the bills that are currently due. And then pages 15 and 16 are the details of that. Any questions on any of those?
I have a comment with regard to the arts and graphics innovations. If nobody knows, that's the 3 new flags that we've had put on our flagpole at each of our 3 stations. If you've not noticed those flags, take a look at them. They're really nice. For PCAD flag. All right, cool.
This is Wolverine on page 15, almost halfway down. It says EMT tuition refund. Is that because
Correct.
we had to cancel classes because of the coronavirus? Or?
No, it was a student that had to drop out due to the economics of our times now.
Okay, so that the tuition for that is $1,100.
It's $1,200. It's $1,200. $100 is a non-refundable deposit because that covers their background checks.
So was this student, was it strictly money oriented and the basis for him dropping out or her dropping out?
As far as I know, it was, yes, economics. They couldn't afford the class.
And Chief, have we ever explored any kind of scholarship situation in the past? And we don't really need to talk about that today. I'm just saying that if you have one, have the intent to do it.
Yeah.
But then hard times hit, or if we have scholarship thing where they get paid back, you know, this $1,100 over 12 months, you know, once you're hired. I don't know. Yeah, just, you know.
We've looked into it. Jamie and I talked about the legalities of it, and I'm not sure what else is available. We can do some more research on it.
But, you know, if it never happens again, so what? If you lost somebody like that really wanted to do this, and making some recommendations, which would be nice. I'm sorry, that kind of a little bit off key there, Mr. Jim.
Yeah, and we've had other students, you know, that drop out at some point, and we pro rata reimburse that. So, you know, if they're just not cutting it, or if they decide it's just not for them,
Sure.
that they can drop out too. Any other questions on any of the bills? That is the end of my report then.
If there are no other questions, I take a motion to approve payment of the bills.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Chief's report.
All right. You should have a copy in front of you. This has been a little tricky lately. You know, in my interest of getting you guys the most current information, this stuff on this current crisis, as you probably noticed in the news cycle, changes about every 30 minutes. So just trying to keep up has been the biggest challenge lately. We'll start with buildings. HQ, we've been getting some, the generator was placed. Masonry is kind of on hold due to just weather concerns. We can't pop any windows out in the middle of storms. So we're looking for a nice stretch of some good weather where we can get some more windows out and they can finish up. Back there, in the information I gave you, I think it's on the last page of one of those packets. There's a bid from Advanced, or an estimate I should call it, from Advanced Fence and Rail regarding bollard poles, which has already been budgeted for. I don't know if that needs to be a new business item or anything like that. We just got it today, so I went ahead and threw it in the packet. And I think Mr. Fritz wanted to say something about that later, I'm not sure. But moving right along, any questions about the generator? I'm going to defer to Ryan. I already asked his permission to throw that at him. He's been out there kind of watching the whole process and making sure everything gets done up right. So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to direct those to Mr. Newsom. No work currently in progress at Station 2. Station 5, with the spring season, we're making sure all of our dirt work around the foundation that I went down and did is holding. So far, so good. Basements without leaks or anything, so we keep a close eye on that. BC actually went down there today and checked, so it's good even with the recent rains we've had. The education building, there is in fact a new washer and dryer downstairs. Our in-house maintenance guy installed them, I believe on Sunday. He actually got those done, and they're up and running. Thank you very much for that. That helps out a lot. Takes the load off the ones across the street, and they're good to go in a nice out of the way spot down there. Operations and staffing, we've got one full-time employee that completed orientation yesterday. We've got 4 PRNers coming off orientation in total this week. Those 4 PRN are all EMTs, and we're looking at possibly another paramedic PRN down the way. There are 27, this is outdated as of yesterday. I believe it's up to 31 today, confirmed COVID cases in Pettis County. Joanne Martin does a much better job than I updating everyone on that. So I encourage everybody to read those Nixle updates and task force. Those numbers are on there, as well as there's some tools online. I think I've sent the board some links to that stuff if you want to keep track in real time what's going on. But my caveat to those is you only know about the ones you test, and testing is fairly on the low side in Pettis County. So otherwise doing pretty good. We've responded to a couple positive cases who were sent home with the COVID diagnosis, and we've actually went to those residences. So we have actually went back to people who've been previously diagnosed with it. But that's not bad, out of 31. Our year-to-date call info, I know it's not the first of the month yet, but I kind of wanted, I know there's some concerns. I've been kind of watching the other ambulance districts around the state to see how everybody's doing as far as call volume. It is down across the state. However, here we're kind of on par. In 2019, you can see we're at 368 in Windsor. We're at 358 this year. So pretty close right there within 10 calls. And Pettis, we're actually up around 200 calls from where we were last year. So no big changes there. And there's not really been any fluctuation as far as transports versus non-transport. So we're kind of on par. I would expect it to be busier this time of year. I do think that COVID has knocked those call numbers down. Normally it's springtime, we get more car wrecks, more traffic, things like that. But year to date, I was just kind of curious to see where we're at, and that is that's actually as of yesterday as well, as of the 27th of April, and I'll have more comprehensive numbers for you on in the first May meeting. On education, I wanted to make note about the EMT class. I actually received 2 tuition payments today, Jamie, on that. So two of the students paid up today. We've got, let's see, we're regularly updating staff on protocols for infection control. The standards on infection control, I think I mentioned this last meeting, it's kind of in lockstep with equipment availability. That's been a real problem throughout this whole thing. There's been some innovation and some different solutions, and basically the CDC says that whatever we can get our hands on works. However, that's caused some fraud in some areas. I'm happy to report we've got all of our supplies from reputable vendors. There's even some local folks that are making stuff for us. No problems, no fraud on our end. We have spent an increased amount of money on supplies in the last month, but we will use those supplies over the next few months. So you're going to see supply numbers go up for the budget, but we'll say flatten the curve here in a few months when we've used up that supply. So we are in good shape. Billing and signature requirements. I don't know if Jamie wants to speak to any of this, but they are constantly being adapted to infection control requirements as this pandemic kind of progresses. There have been some things that are waived, but we're doing our best to get all of our required paperwork done on these patients. You know, it's you don't exactly want to hand everybody your iPad in the middle of the pandemic. So we're trying to do our best with that. And then supplies, like I said, we haven't had any problems with supplies recently. Gowns is still a big issue across the state, and that's for hospitals, EMS agencies everywhere. There's some people that are actually making the gowns out of cloth material right now, but that is, I'll just say, less than desirable. It's not impermeable. It's not impermeable to fluids. There's just not a lot of good it does. So we haven't really went that cloth gown way because it's not really anything and useful. We are decontaminating after any possible exposed call though. Like I mentioned the board with my little sprayer out here last time, we're still deconning after any potential or known COVID exposures, and that's been going good. The only time that's causing problems is I think we had 3 ambulances lined up there waiting to decon in a row the other day. So they kind of bottlenecked out there a little bit just because of the way the call volume went, but otherwise no problems with that issue. The state, if you might have heard, some of the N95 or high efficiency respirators that we use, there's a surgical mask and then there's the N95. The N95 is the fitted one that everybody was having a hard time getting at first. We are good on those. The state is actually partnering with a private company that's doing mass decontamination. So you can send in your used masks. I won't say grossly decontaminated, but say you've used the mask for a total of 8 hours without any fluids or anything like that getting on it and just been breathing through it. You can actually send those into the state now and they're doing mass decontamination for everybody. I don't anticipate we're going to need that because the way we cycle them through, since we work a 2 on 4 off schedule, they put them in bags when they're not using them. They come back after 3 days, they're usable, but after the 4th day, they come back and they can reuse those masks again and again. So we've been pretty lucky on that respect. Our scheduling works out quite well for circulating those masks. Vehicles, I don't have any new information at this time on vehicles. And I think that's all I have for open session. The Windsor, just FYI, canceled their meeting again this month due to stay-at-home orders, no other reason. And they didn't really have any business pending, so they just went and canceled their meeting for April, and anticipating them probably meeting in May. But that's all I got. No one has any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, and Chief, you suggested that we ask Ryan about that, just so that, is the generator actually working now?
No, it's, the analysts came up, did the wiring, they shut the power off the building for an hour while they did the cut in for the transfer switch.
Okay.
Got all the wiring completed, and now currently we're waiting on the delivery utilities engineer to look at plans and size of piping and what kind of meter we have down there right now, so we can figure out if that meter can be tapped into, or if we have to get a whole new larger meter in another location. Probably right there next to the generator where we have the dumpster at right now. So as soon as I hear back from the engineer, then we'll start looking at gas line installs and first figure out the leave it completely wiring for them today. Is that the gas?
You said their concerns over the gas lines or whether or not the current lines we have over there were existing, the existing lines were big enough to run the generator and the heaters in the day, right?
Yeah, we have
The question.
We have a 1980s, early 80s model meter sitting out there with very small diameter piping going through it, which one of my concerns is that that might not be sufficient. So they're going to check the specs on the generator, compare to what's installed.
You said they, that's Liberty.
Yes.
Okay, and they've already been on the site and looked at it?
They're looking at the schematics for the generator right now, and then once they decide on that, then they'll come do a site visit so they can, if that will not work, then they'll find a different location that'll work for the larger size or replace that one that's back there. They just have a bunch of calculations to do, so then we'll have a site visit.
And once they sign off on it or whatever, then we can turn it on.
Yeah, once the Liberty engineers are finished, we have to get somebody to install piping from the meter to the generator. So we'll have to find a contractor to do that, from just that pipe. Which depending on if we use the current setup, it's gonna go across the ceiling. If we put a new meter in the front of the building, it'll just be short on right to the generator.
Well, I mean, we got it sitting over there, and of course, if we can't turn it on, it ain't doing too much for us. But I guess the thing that I'm thinking about as far as timing of that is that we're about to get into the storm season, and we've already seen the lights flicker here, today. So because this is the storm season. And so if it's gonna happen, it's probably more likely to happen within the next couple, 2 or 3 months. So if it's just a matter of saying, talking to Liberty Utilities or something, and we need some help with that, well, then we know them, so we could sure enough reach out, so. That's all.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the medical director's report.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. In looking over reports from our folks, they're doing their job. In this time of uncertainty, I'm happy to report that they are taking care of the patients in the way that they're supposed to. It appears that they're using their protective equipment appropriately, and knock on wood, we're doing okay. At the beginning of this, there was a big concern across the state as to whether we were going to be losing a lot of personnel who were going to be contracting the COVID-19, and that there was going to be a significant workforce depletion. But so far we've weathered that storm pretty well, and very few EMTs and medics have actually had to come off duty or offline because of it. At the SAC meeting today, the State Advisory Council, it was announced that the state of emergency declaration has been extended to June 15th. And there was an explanation on the governor's website that the stay-at-home order is for the state is going to expire on May 4th. But by continuing the state of emergency, it will allow the state to continue. They have waived or suspended 450 state statutes and regulations relating to how EMS does its work and how other things in the state function. and they've relaxed some of the regulations to help cover certain needs. But the stay-at-home order is going to expire on Monday, May 4th, so that we can begin to move forward with reopening the state and returning to a little more sense of normalcy. You know, that this is all done with apprehension, because we really don't know if there's going to be a resurgence or not. But we're hoping that by initiating this reopening with caution and with hopefully some sense of rationality, that we can avoid a big second wave or surge, and help get people back to work and help get economies stabilized. Do any of you have any other questions for me?
Hello, Doc.
Hi.
Maybe two-part questions, and I don't like those when somebody asks me that way, but you know, they kind of go hand in hand. The ones that Chief, the one full-time equivalent that's coming off of their orientation, and the other PRNs, have they gone through the protocols and the trainings with the virus issues too?
Right, yeah, if
Orientation, okay.
right, yeah, it's part of their orientation is to be familiar with our protocols and how they might differ from where they worked before. So that's
And
part
then
of
the
it.
next thing, the governor's announcement that, you know, on May the 4th, things are going to change and they're gradually going to open things, but are we changing any of our protocols or the way we handle things at that time? Are we still going to do it the same old way, the way we retrained and done?
No, we're going to continue to use our the way we're functioning right now in relationship to the pandemic, because we don't want to just scrap all that and then all of a sudden have a bunch of people get sick.
I concur. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you.
All right.
Committee reports, strategic planning committee. Due to everything going on, there hasn't been any meetings or updates on that. So we'll move on to unfinished business. Approve emergency sick leave provision. There's a copy of that in the back of your packet here. What page is that?
17.
17 and 18.
The one thing you guys discussed that I don't see in this motion that Mike prepared was in regards to what they would be paid for.
Correct, the term. That is what we're speaking of, going back to the term, the amount of time.
Yeah, it doesn't really mention that. It just refers back to the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act. And it doesn't state anything about, you know, that they'd be paid the same as if they were working.
Wasn't the difference on that, Mr. Chairman, the 40-hour, because that's what the national was.
Yeah. What we talked about at the last meeting was full pay for the 14.
Which according to federal, times 8.
But if we pay them their normal full pay,
If they have the hours, it's not specific.
just if they were required to take.
Yeah, we're on page 18, number 2, it tells you that on quarantine or isolation order, or that they've been advised that they have it. So, you didn't, why does 120 hours stick in my head, Jamie?
I'm not sure. 112 is the average of what somebody would work in a 2-week period, but it could be, just depending on the timing of it, it could be 96 hours or it could be 144 hours. Just depending on when that 2 weeks started and when it ended.
So can that be worded where it would be actual according to the calendar or according to the work schedule in some manner?
Yeah, it's according to their scheduled hours to work.
Okay. We get away with that, I suggest that's what we do. Because it could be up to 144 or as little as 96, depending on where they fall in their professional doctor's release of duty. So,
There has been, just so the board is aware, there has been some shortening of CDC requirements. Healthcare workers who do may not necessarily have to take the whole 14 days off. So this would be a pretty circumstance. It would have to be sick the whole time. Go symptom-free. They've shortened that time for healthcare workers. Why? But it's they want to keep front lines as much as possible apparently. But yeah, and then of course the caveat of if you average it and they didn't work those hours, they might back. So, the safe way to go is use by their scheduled hours.
by scheduled hours.
Scheduled hours,
Yeah.
up to 14 days.
Yeah.
Does that say that in here?
No.
And we had an attorney draw this up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would be hesitant about changing anything on here unless the attorney changes it. This is what.
We discussed it with Mike, and I actually have emails if you want to see them where he said, you guys can do what you want to do. This was basically something he had prepared and just put our name on it. He had already prepared it for somebody else. He just changed it, put our name on it.
But in for the most part, this is 98% of what ours will look like. What we're gonna end up, because we're not gonna do this tonight, nor will we be doing this tonight, but it is for our review and understanding that next time we meet, we're probably gonna have a document designed.
We will ask him to include that.
Everything's cutting in and out, so I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
We'll ask the attorney to include that motion in that provision that he prepared for us.
Were you able to hear that, Jamie?
Yes.
Hardship policy procedure.
Sorry, so you want me to have him add that it'll be for scheduled hours.
For scheduled hours up to 14 days.
He might have better terminology to use, as long as he's got the intent.
Okay. Approved hardship policy procedure. And we talked about delegating to the administrative staff hardship applications that have met all the criteria. They follow our policy and go ahead and approve those. And the ones outside of that, they would bring to the board. It's simply a matter of delegating to the administration to follow the policy. So is there any questions about that? Or if they're not, I'd take a motion to approve that policy.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
No.
New business, an additional bank account. I believe they recommend for the money we've received, put that in a special account, right?
Yes, several of the organizations that I've listened to webinars have recommended that. And then I also spoke to our auditor, and she said she was recommending everybody that's getting any sort of stimulus funds, put those in a separate bank account so we can make sure and document when that gets moved to the general fund, what it's being used for. I did communicate with the bank. They don't need any resolutions or anything. If you guys want to go ahead and set that account up, I'll just email them and let them know, and they will get the paperwork ready. And then the signers can go to the drive up and sign. All of our old resolutions indicate who the signers are, so we don't need any new resolutions. And then John Fritz will have to move that money from the general fund over to that other account.
So if you need action from us to add that additional account.
Yes.
What kind of action do you want, Jamie? Just a recognition from the board that we're opening a
Motion.
Yes. Yeah, probably just a motion and a vote.
If I could ask a couple questions. I'm looking at on page 10, we have a breakdown of different accounts. We have the equipment replacement fund. We got 51 grand in there. I don't think we really used that, have we? Actually did any action out of that, moved it from one place to the other?
Nope.
So could we, since I think we can title it any way we want to title it, could we move that $51,000 out of that into the general account, which is where that money would come from to begin with, and just label that the COVID funds, instead of having another new account, when we've got accounts that are just not active currently?
That's up to the board. I mean, we have those accounts all set aside, money set aside to use for those items.
Well, there's no cost to us to set the account, is there?
No, we don't have any costs associated with any of our accounts.
To make it simple, I mean, I think you just open the account.
Yeah, if they're wanting to separate that money.
They want to be able to, I think that'd be the simplest thing to do.
Make a motion, open a new account, specifically for the use of depositing the money, federal money, any state money that we receive related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Are there any announcements? If not, we'll take a few minute recess before we.
Are we gonna talk about this? We're not gonna talk about this one.
I just heard Chief bring it up, so I just got it today, and so, yeah.
Can't talk about it. I'm looking to review it.
I think most of you got this in the email several months, probably a month ago. Did we, I think we dropped it in.
And we kind of talked about approving it anyway.
Right, and this was like the final thing that we come together with that just makes sense. We brought Rob Rawlings in. He came to do this as a favor for the district. He looked at a couple things. He knows the building because he did the work over there. So this is a very, very cheap solution.
Who is this advanced instant rail?
The only people who would return our phone calls on baller installations. That's it.
Specialty item, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Like
Yeah.
that.
And that's the only new area.
They get this all back, full session.
That probably falls under the chief. Brought that up.
Well, they actually.
I honestly wasn't sure where it landed just because of already being a budget item and not only one person gave us a return call on, so.
Probably ought not talk about this, when we're at recess, but
Sure.
another piece that we could throw in there since we're talking about the front. We had some talk about redoing that front entrance a little bit or something, so maybe we could include that under that. I mean, I'd kind of like to know if we're doing anything or have done anything. But the deal is we can throw that into the discussion, because it all involves that building area. Doc, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Well, you know, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but just out of curiosity, your wife is always with you, and I saw her move real quickly in your background there, and then, but she hasn't been, we haven't seen her, so is she okay?
Sandy,
We're used to seeing her at the meetings.
hang on a second.
Maybe I opened a can of worms. Hello, we missed you at our meeting. We missed you at our meeting. We just wanted to make sure you were okay.
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, it'd be nice to get back out and be able to come to the meetings.
Well, we were worried that maybe Doc had you on lockdown.
No, I'm probably more likely to go out than he is, so.
Everybody makes their own decisions on that kind of deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we work together.
Good, good. I think so many different people with different opinions on all this stuff, you know, it's, you just kind of let people handle it the way they want to handle it, you know, if they want to stay in, you know, you stay in it. And
So I just texted.
Their decisions are made not based on how it's affecting their life today.
well, yeah, and that's, you know, that's
People
tough.
out of work and that doctor will be there.
Yeah. You know, the governor, whether you like him or you don't, those are some really tough decisions. You know, how do you balance people's overall health and then the economy at the same time?
Well, they was talking on the news last night about, you know, the commercial aircraft. People were getting upset. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna, I mean, you know, they
All
can't,
right.
and they can't afford to put one in every 6 seat, you know. Wear a mask if it bothers you that much.
I'll tell you what, when they open this up, and we happen to have a great big increase in cases, we don't know what problems we've had. That'd be such a different ballgame. And I would suspect that'll happen.
There's a lot of talk about nursing home patients and our high-risk community patients, treating them all as a person under investigation or person of interest, which is probably a little bit broad net, but, yeah, essentially, I think you asked the question earlier, yeah, our infection control procedures are gonna stay right where they're at. The question is, will people follow the, you know, social distancing and all that? I think that's gonna be the key.
You watch what happens the week after it's opened up, it'll be right where we used to be.
Yeah.
And then we'll have an increase. They say Saline County up there around that time, it's just a hot spot.
In a lot of cases.
We'll go ahead and call a meeting back to order. And I take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMo 610.021, sections 1, 8, 9, and 14.
So,
Second.
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
And Mr. McGinn?
Yes.